scene and in command.
Hello and welcome to Just a Girl and Her Firefighter. I'm Kristi Hilmer, your host. Grab your favorite drink, whether it's coffee, fizz, or maybe something else, and let's dive into the wild, wonderful world of first responder life. We are here to swap stories, share laughs, and tackle those "did that just really happen?" moments. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just figuring this all out, this is the place for you. So kick back, get comfy, and let's have some fun. Hello. Today we get to talk with Kerri, and I am so excited to hear all of her stories because it sounds like, has some very interesting ones to share, and how she balances a full-time law practice in addition to being married to a firefighter and raising kids. So why don't you start off with just telling us a little bit about what your family looks like, what you do, all the background fluff stuff.
Yeah. We are in Massachusetts. My husband is a full-time career firefighter. He's actually fourth generation as well, so there's a lot of them. He's got a bunch of cousins and whatnot. They actually we just had the first of the fifth generation pass the fire academy. So it's kind of cool to be part of all of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's a legacy at that point.
Yeah, a lot to carry, but it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we're busy bees. So when I met him, he was divorced with two little kids. Those little kids are now, one turned 22 yesterday, and the other we just sent off to her first year of college. So those two are sort of, they still are around, but not sort of on the schedule with us anymore. But we also have a 7-year-old and a 4.5-year-old. So we are busy bees.
Yes, exactly. And these kids, their schedule, man.
Oh my goodness. It's like back to school, soccer and dance and all the things are all starting back up. It's so much to even keep track of it all.
Yes, next week we add back in volleyball. So my son does baseball and my two girls do club volleyball. And then my oldest is in junior high, so we do school volleyball.
Mhm.
And next week I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot harder when there's like one, two, then you get into three and you're trying to make sure their schedules don't overlap and it's just not possible.
Yes. No, it's not. Funny. Well, how did you guys meet then?
Oh my goodness. So we actually met online, and
Okay.
I joke a little because it's like it's not online the way the kids do it these days, right? Like this was
Old school
back,
online.
right? Like really online back in 2010. And so
Okay.
there were no apps, like there was no
Yes.
swiping. Like you had to actually open your computer or your laptop and log in.
Yes, I always think of like You've Got Mail. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but where there's the
Basically.
AOL or the chat, yes.
Yeah,
All of
yeah.
it.
Some
Mhm.
messages going back and forth and whatnot. And I was like, I don't know about this guy. Like signing up for being the wife of a firefighter is one thing that I just had no concept of, but also being a stepmom that I just had no
Yes.
concept of. So there was a lot that was all wrapped up in that, but he was very cute. So there's that.
So then you're like, okay, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, basically. They
The
can always get
downfall.
us. I remember talking to a girlfriend being like, I'm just going to go on this date because you meet someone online and then you go in and you can like get a sense right away of whether or not there's anything there. I'm like, I'm sure it's nothing. And then I walked in and was like, oh, so
Here we go.
here we go.
That's awesome. Well, since you married into fire life, this might be a very good question for you then, is what surprised you most?
Yes. Yeah. So I had no concept, right? I was not part of this world at all. And I was coming in to this family that obviously this is their way of life. They've been doing this
Yes.
for a very long time. I think what surprised me the most is how you can really fall into a groove of this just being completely normal. And that can go for such a long stretch. but just how quickly you can be reminded that it's not necessarily normal, of what they're doing every single day when they walk into the firehouse, and just like, the risk that they're taking. Um, it's so easy for just, a call or a big fire or, an injury to kind of bring it all up of like, oh no, they're doing something really dangerous every day. So it's sort of it amazes me how it can all just feel normal, and then it shifts
Mhm.
so quickly, and you kind of have to settle back in after those scarier moments.
Yes, which when we were kind of talking and messaging before, it sounds like you've had a few of them. So I don't know if
Yes.
you can share any of them.
Yeah. So the biggest one actually was he wasn't even on shift.
That's always
Um,
me.
but that they're just sort of born this way, right?
You
Like
just
they're
know when trouble is happening.
Yes, yes. It's like it's innate in them of, something happens, you're either, the building's on fire, you have people running away, you might have people going towards it to help, but like these guys are running into that. And it's
Yes.
just I like to tell him that I'm like, you guys are a little unhinged. It's okay.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
need you.
Yes, it's what makes you who you are, but
What
it's,
makes you who you
not
are.
normal.
Yes. So he's been volunteering with the organization that runs the Boston Marathon since he was a
Okay.
teenager.
Oh,
And
okay.
so he kind of has his section. He's become sort of the leader of that section for, I
Okay.
mean, so many years now. He's been doing it for 30 plus years. And so you are able to kind of bring in your team. And so most sections along the route are just like you and me. They're just, normal people that are
Yeah,
just happen to be there. But I mean, who else does he hang out with other than other firefighters?
right.
So you have this spot right at the finish line that just happens to be manned by first responders. It's not
Okay.
required. It just
It
kind
just
of
is a thing.
is what it is. And so he's been there for, a significant amount of time. And so when the bombs went off at the finish
Mhm.
line, he was there.
Wow.
And that was, I think it's not necessarily knowing that they're in a dangerous spot. It's
Mhm.
more when you can't get in touch with them.
Yes.
And so we had a moment there in the city where they were in something big, and it was
Yes.
catastrophic that they were responding to. But on top of that, all of the cell phone lines jammed because
Yes.
everyone was trying to communicate. And so I actually didn't hear from him until like 7 o'clock that night, something along those lines. And so that is where it's like you can just tell a story in your head that
Yeah.
is sometimes just so much worse than what is even going on. And so it's just, it's that personality that like this thing went off and all of them were like, are we good? We're good. We're going in, and like running towards the situation when they weren't even, actually working. But it's those moments where you're like, I'm very, very proud of you. And
Hmm.
also I'm going to kill you for
Yes.
that.
Like you do know you're supposed to come home, right? Absolutely. And then that's probably an added dynamic when they aren't on shift in that situation, because I feel like my brain, like I had to have him walk me through all their training. And we were married, like we went through the fire academy together, all of that. So I knew his training, but I am a very scientific, logical human. So I'm like,
Yes.
tell me all the training you have done, because then I can be, yes, you're safe, you've done this. And then to be in a situation where they weren't on shift, yes, they're still trained, but you don't have access to like the chief's number or the protocols. It's just chaos.
It's just chaos. There was
Yeah.
no protocol in that
Yes.
moment. And now it is interesting because now there is so much security and whatnot around the event,
Mm.
just so much more enhanced than what it was. But like that, the year after him going to the marathon was like, okay, likelihood of something happening is very
Right.
low, but the anxiety is spiking.
Yes.
But it's a really good point of kind of relying on their training, but
Mhm.
also showing him that I trust him, that I know that you know what you're doing, that I have faith that you are coming out of that no matter what, because
Yeah.
you know what you're doing. You've been training for this, and kind of giving him that confidence that I, believe in him and I know he's coming home. But it's that lack of communication can be hard.
Oh, yes, we have been in that situation and it is not fun.
No,
Yeah,
no.
it's not fun at all. And to have that long of a time, because you can really unrationalize yourself.
Yes, yes. I think early on, one of the first sort of moments of being like, oh, wait a second, this is a little scary sometimes, was
Yeah.
him being on shift. So they do 24 hours. So it's,
Okay.
I'm going to sleep and waking up, and
Yeah.
I get a couple of text messages from, like my sister and an aunt, just being like, hey, is he okay? And I'm like, I don't know what
I
happened.
think
What do you
so.
mean? Is he okay? And so calling him, and of course he's like in the shower. He was fine, but he wasn't answering right away. And so like we kind of, your brain can spiral, especially when it's
Yes.
the first time that that's happened. And I'm turning on the news and seeing someone was injured and everyone was fine. But now we have coming up on 15 years now, we've got a little routine where if he thinks he's going to make the news, he has
Yes.
to let me know that he's like walked away, right? And so I'll wake up some mornings and I have a text that says, I'm okay. I'm like, all right, well, now I'll figure out what happened. But
I
I
go,
do
let's
have
see,
that.
what's the news? What happened?
Like our name on your jacket on the 6 a.m. news. Thank you.
100%, unless it's to save a cat or something like that, like
Right.
with a baby, something happy.
Yes. Yeah, the
Um,
please.
well, how was it at home after? Because a lot of times when you have those significant events, it's the immediate is fine, and
Yeah.
then it's the after that can be.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a weird situation in general,
Yeah.
but the entire city sort of locked down. There was this manhunt, right? So everything just
Yeah.
stopped. He was not going back to work yet, and like he was not scheduled. And so he was just sort of like a caged animal at home
Yeah.
because he wanted to be there and be part of it and all of that. And I wasn't at work because our office was closed when you don't go into the city. And so it was a really strange time, like a couple of days of just everything being just sort of paused. So that in and of itself made it sort of difficult because there was no distractions.
Mhm.
But that was one of the bigger ones where, sometimes you can see that it really is impacting them. The maybe, lack of sleep or disrupted sleep, or, I think he tries to put on he tries to sort of like compartmentalize all of that and put on a brave face at home. But you can obviously tell when something's sort of bugging them. The city itself that he works for does a really good job of kind of bringing people in and kind of forcing them to talk about things when
Oh,
something
good.
happens. But this was a little different, right? Like you had a bunch of them that were there, but also it wasn't really on shift. And so there was some moments kind of in that follow up where it was like just the visuals of what he had seen were really, really hard to kind of push back and kind of go about daily life. And that can be hard because they're so trained to like, I can handle this, I know what to do. And in the moment they do, and they
Yes.
can handle it, but then sometimes those images are just really, really difficult to kind of get out of your brain. And so there's that one was a little bit harder than some of the others to kind of help him
Yeah.
through.
And to then see, I mean, they're the first on scene, so they already see horrific things. But then to see it literally from the beginning,
Yeah.
like the actual event and the after,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. To
can
be part
imagine.
of that sort of first scary moment where it was like, we don't know what's happening. We don't know if there's more. And so not really understanding what was happening. I think that adrenaline spike alone would have been enough to need to kind of recover from, right? Uh, yeah,
Absolutely.
so it can be hard. It can be hard to sort of be there in a way where it's like, I don't fully understand because I wouldn't run towards that. It's not in my,
Right.
makeup, my chemical makeup. I'm going the other way. And so, you don't fully understand it. You don't really fully comprehend what they've seen, or that sort of drive to kind of get in there and be in the mix, even though they're still in danger. But it's, you don't want to force them, but also kind of being there. But there's also trying to sort of push through that a little bit because he doesn't really share a lot of details because he does want to protect us, but also just the home life and the home space and not sort of bring all of that back. And so kind of finding a balance over time of just how to support and be there for him without kind of pushing too hard.
Yes. Yeah. We've had to work through that balance for sure of sharing to where there's still a connection, but there's still things that he's like, they're just too awful to
Yes.
share. Like, I can't do that
Right.
to you or the family. And you can just tell, like, there's certain days I can tell that it just wears more than others.
Yeah, yeah. They come in the door after a shift with either, like a pep in their step or not so much.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, how are we handling this today?
Yes. Yeah. It
Yeah.
wasn't on the news, so I don't know. Exactly. Well, what then have, if it's different, I guess, than what we've already talked about, is there anything else that you've struggled with and then overcame, or what you found to help kind of walk through some of that struggle?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that sort of idea of letting yourself kind of spiral on the anxiety of what's happening, I think that's the biggest piece that obviously that makes sense, but it sort of caught me off guard of oh, I'm not supposed to just shut everything down. I'm supposed to carry on at work and pick up the kids,
Mhm.
and even though I have no idea what's happening or if he's safe, and it doesn't happen that often, right? But you
Yeah.
have those moments where they do sort of make you kind of catch your breath. So having that sort of system in place with him where it's like, okay, if you can, you're letting me know that you're okay. But also just, trying to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. Because if
Mhm.
if he's sort of out of commission for whatever reason, I'm the one that has to keep carrying all of this on and making sure that the kids are good and we've got the big kids, we've got the little kids, and just making sure that everybody has everything that they need. And so really like taking care of yourself and learning how to sort of manage that piece, that anxiety. You can't spiral on it. You can't let your brain go to these dark places. And so really relying on, like you said, the training that they get, the fact that like I know that you're good at this job. I know that if anyone can do this, it's you. And so
Yeah.
I have to just remind myself that. And that can be hard.
Yes, I know. Sometimes he comes home. He's like, I think you think I can do anything. I'm like, I have to tell myself you can do anything.
Yeah,
Probably
you
like,
sure
can't you
can.
hang this? Can't you do this? I'm like, I know you can.
Yeah, let me keep believing this, please.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, systems and health are just absolutely crucial. And having those, like, I've had to create systems in place for when it's okay, there's extra mandatories this season or whatever it is, because we need to be almost like I need my plan A, my plan B, and my plan C. And just
Yes.
you always have these systems and
Yeah.
then taking care
Yeah,
physically,
part of
mentally.
the reason, so I worked in a corporate setting for a long time, and part of the
Okay.
reason that I sort of shifted out of that too, to kind of to do my own thing was being able to manage my schedule in that way,
Yes.
where like shift days, I usually don't have clients scheduled. I'm using that for, just a work day, just in case, because I don't want to have to
Yes.
cancel on someone because I have a sick kid or something like that. Being able to
Absolutely.
control a lot of that, that helps a lot when it comes to sort of balancing the schedule and just being able to respond to things when you need to. Yeah. Yeah. So that's been really good too.
That's really cool. And so now you have your own law practice,
I
right?
do. I do. So I went out on my own, oh my goodness, in 2022 when, yeah, we had the littlest one at home, and I was like, all right, no more babies.
Yes,
No more
I
babies. What am I
understand
going to
that.
do? And so I had gone out on my own. I actually, the practice that I have now, I actually ended up partnering with another mom. We're building this practice together. But it's interesting because, we talk about like, okay, don't think about the worst thing that could happen and,
And
sort of
that's what
push
you
that
do.
anxiety. Yeah, push that anxiety out of your mind. And then I end up in the situation where I'm like, oh, all I do all day is talk about the worst case scenario. So it would be
Yeah.
like it can be easy to sort of let that all sort of seep in. So I am an estate planning attorney. So of course,
Okay.
like trusts and wills and things like that, but also handling like moments of incapacity,
Okay.
injuries and illnesses and sort of helping mostly married couples, but sometimes, all sorts of people, kind of through what that looks like in advance of it happening so that we can make sure that they have the ability to make decisions on each other's behalf. And so I kind of, try to make it as upbeat as I possibly can when I'm talking to clients. But obviously, we get phone calls too where it's like, this just happened, or what do we do now? This emergency. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you come home and I'm like, okay, the worlds are colliding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't need like this phone call that then made me think of what could happen to you over here. And so
Yes.
sometimes it can be hard to sort of keep those things separate. But it's also nice to be able to see, like, okay, we're helping or I'm helping people through something that like I sort of face, we as spouses of
Mhm.
first responders sort of face on a daily basis that like something could happen at any moment. And so being prepared for that to make it just not as hard, right? We can't
Yeah.
prevent it, but just make it not as hard. And so I have to try to weave that story in my head.
That would be challenging. Yes, absolutely. To,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what you do for a living. And then to tell yourself, no, this isn't what's going to spiral and happen.
Yeah,
Hmm.
right. It is. I'm like, what's like Murphy's Law? If we have
Yeah.
everything all set up, nothing will
Yes,
happen. Right.
exactly. Exactly.
Something like that. I don't know.
I'm going to go with that. Uh, what is something that you would tell somebody listening today that you wish you would have known?
I think being able to keep we respect the fire service. We're honoring everyone that sort of came before, and we obviously like the work that they do is amazing, and they're so brave, and we want to support all of that. But when we are not also in that world, I think it can be really easy to fall into this like this is my spouse and this is what he does. And I'm sort of taking it on as my personality, right? And it can be so easy to sort of fall into that, probably with anything. But this is just really big. It's such a big part of our lives. And so figuring out a balance between what does that look like on showing up on Fireman's Sunday and maybe bringing some stuff by the firehouse, some treats or whatnot for them, but also like having your own thing and
Yeah.
not it becoming your entire personality that he or she is a firefighter, right? Because I've just seen so many people sort of spiral in that. And then if anything happens to that relationship, it's like anything else, right? If anything happens to that, now you're sort of left trying to figure out like, well, who am I and what do I do and what do I enjoy? And so making sure you don't kind of lose yourself to it. And it can be really hard because there's a lot, like their schedule dominates everything. We can't change it. And so it
Yeah,
can be really hard to not just fall into that, like, this is who I am, but it's just a part of who we are. And so making sure that
exactly.
you're really having your own things, right? Whether it's, parent or work or just activities outside of, you know, the fire service.
Absolutely. I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like, this is title's not really the right word, but it's like, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm also married to a firefighter. Like, it's just
Yeah.
one aspect. Because even I used to work full time as a nurse. And when I walked away from that and I started my own business, it was like a huge identity shift.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
was my identity. This is what I've worked for. This was the goal. And it could be the same thing if then what happens if they're not a firefighter anymore? And that's what your whole marriage is based on, or that's your entire identity. Even if your entire identity is your kids, they go to college, then what happens? Just not
Exactly.
getting trapped in any of that one of our titles being our identity.
Exactly. That's perfect because it is their identity, right? And so
Mhm.
much of it. And I even try to sort of encourage him to not let it become the whole thing because then you do see them, whether it's an injury or retirement or whatnot, you see them
Yeah.
struggle with that,
Yes.
sort of letting go of certifications as they're coming up to be, that they have to renew them or things like that, where it's like, they feel like they're losing a part of themselves and we don't need to be part of that. We should be supporting through that, rather than also going through this like tremendous grieving process. So but it can be really hard. It can be really hard.
Absolutely, because it is a big thing. And it's
Yeah.
such a purpose and a calling for them
Mhm.
that as a family, you do take that on. And
Yes.
so letting it be multiple purposes or multiple things, but
Yes. Yeah.
it's
And I
a
try
big
to
thing.
balance it with the kids as well, where it's like,
Mhm.
yes, it's very cool that like daddy's a
Mhm.
firefighter. And so whether he was or not, you probably were going to want to be one too when you're 5 and 6 and 7 years
Yes.
old, right? And
Everybody's
so
Halloween costume.
right, exactly. It's always going to be there. But like encouraging other activities and thoughts and interests and things like that. If they end up in there, that's great. And then add more to the fifth generation. But
Yeah.
I never want it to feel sort of heavy on them that like this is the path they need to go down just because dad did that. And so that is a big part of it for me as well, of like, we're showing up, we're honoring things, we're, making sure we know the history of the
Yeah.
family and all of that, but also like go play soccer.
Yeah. And dad will be at about three-quarters of them, and that's okay.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Build the Legos, do the like whatever it is. Go like
Yeah.
figure out all the interests so that you
Yeah.
have just a more well-rounded sort of view of things.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know. This is a question I ask everybody, and it's been really interesting to see the answers. So I don't know if your husband's a jokester or a prankster, but I feel like most of them are. And so, has there been like, does he bring pranks home and do them? Does it stay at the firehouse? Because he's fourth generation, is it like a family prank? Like, what does the prank situation look like at your house?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So he is the vast majority of his family is in one city, and he
Okay.
actually got hired in a different city. So he's not with
Oh,
them, which is interesting.
yeah.
So we sort of come together for a lot of things, but he's not actually on the job with them, which is what the vast majority of them are all in one city.
Yeah.
So yes, I think there are a lot more pranks happening on the other side. So he's not so much a prankster. He has been cracking me up recently because I think they probably all have this where they come home and they're constantly just like grabbing or whatever at us, right?
Yes. Oh,
Smacking
yes.
smacking butts as we walk by,
Yes.
all of that fun stuff.
Yes.
So I tease him and I have for years of like, what's wrong with you? You don't always have to be like that. Well, he has discovered that on social media, usually TikTok, there's like all these women basically talking about their husbands doing exactly that with these like
Yes.
very funny
Going
videos.
up the stairs and
Yeah,
like you like are hiding and like
hiding, right?
whispering. Yeah.
And so he's constantly sending me these and being like, see, it's not just me. It's exacerbated the situation so much.
Yes. Yes, I
I'm like,
know.
get off of
Yes.
TikTok.
Sometimes it's helpful to be like, okay, this is a normal behavior. And
Yeah.
then other times you're like, oh my gosh, but it's giving them permission.
Yes, yes, exactly. I'm like, stop
The
that.
funniest, the funniest one I just saw recently is where it's like we like to keep, I forget how they said it, but it's like we like to keep things even. And so the husband is putting his clothes like at the bottom of the stairs by the laundry basket, but not in it. And then she's bringing the load of cardboard and throwing it in the garage. And I was like, oh, everybody does this? Because
It's so
I don't want to
it's
do the
so
cardboard.
funny.
I throw it out there. So anyway, so that was very funny.
Yeah, these universal truths that,
Yes.
frustrate and
Yeah.
whatnot, but are just so funny. Yeah, he
Absolutely.
loves to send me those. It's not just me. I'm like,
Yeah.
fine.
Dang it. Oh man. Okay. Well, our last question, and then we'll do some rapid fire
Yeah.
questions, is what is one thing that you wish kind of the outside world could understand?
I think, that's a tough one. I think understanding that and I won't sort of color it as all of them, but I think it's the vast majority of them. The anyone in fire service, they're showing up in the world as being sort of brave and tough and can handle anything. And when they sort of come home, sometimes that all sort of falls away. I think having people understand that it does impact them, what they see and what they carry, and just not only the like the visuals of it, but sort of what got people to the point of some of the things that they see. And so they're just exposed to so much of the sort of hurt in the world, and they carry that with them. And I think having people like understand that, we think of firefighters as like, exactly the jokesters, the sort
Yeah.
of like get along, the good time guys, and they are. But sometimes I feel like that's something they put up to sort of
Mhm.
protect us and maybe shield what's kind of happening on the inside. And so maybe it would be good if other people could kind of see that they do carry that. They're not as tough as they portray.
Yes. I know I was talking with some friends at dinner, and we just had some significant things in our community that had happened that were just absolutely devastating and heartbreaking. And they were kind of talking through their view of it and, experience or knowing people. And I was sitting there thinking like that's what our husbands see,
Mhm.
like, all the time.
All the
And
time.
like they are just there. And it like you listen to people process it and talk about it, and it's devastating to them, and they haven't even seen it.
Right.
And then they're having to walk through some of these things. And it just every once in a while it hits me of like, this is what they see. This is
Yeah.
what they do. And like, how can that not affect a human? And
Right.
I think the longer you're married, you can kind of see it change. Like, it's not like they change or their personality changes. You can just see them wear it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think I see it the most with my husband with the kids,
Yeah.
like just very fiercely protective over any situation because he's seen so many things go the wrong way. He wants our house to be the fun house at all times because he's
Yes.
like, if they're home, I have
Yes.
some control. And, that like those types of things, it's like, gotta just keep everybody close enough that he thinks he can respond to anything, right? And so
Yes.
as long as they're within my control, I can fix it. And so trying to help him through that is sometimes like we've got to let them fly a little.
Yes. 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 We have to let them grow up and learn
Yes.
and experience, which is not easy to do, but
No, no,
yeah.
but especially given everything that they kind of see and the
Yeah.
the end result of mistakes that they end up kind of having to process. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that was a very good one. So now we'll switch gears and go into rapid fire that is
Okay.
hopefully more funny. So, what is your favorite movie?
Oh goodness. Favorite movie? We are in such like a little kid
Yeah.
rotation right now that like the only thing that even comes up is like Disney movies. We have been on a Moana on repeat kick
Yes.
because the new one is coming out.
Yes, I'm very excited about the new one.
So as lame as that is, I think it's Moana right now.
Yeah, but Moana is one that I could watch. Like when the kids were watching it over and over, I'm like, I can handle this one. Like,
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
this. The
I'm
music's
rooting for her.
good. Yeah, she can win. The grandma comes back, like all the things.
Yes. Yeah, very
I'm very excited.
inspirational. I also love that the kids are growing up with like their Disney sort of main characters are not just princesses waiting around
Yes.
for someone. So that's
Yeah,
kind of fun too.
right. It's changed a little bit.
Yes. Yes. No more Cinderellas. Thanks.
Yeah. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Good choice.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how do you drink your
Actually, it's right
coffee?
here.
How do you drink your coffee?
I drink my coffee black, which I have been told.
Hallelujah.
Do you?
Yes. I'm like,
People
I'm
will
gonna
look at
find
me like I'm
somebody.
crazy.
Yes, it's black, and then if I go out, it's an Americano,
Yes.
and people think I'm weird, but
Yeah.
I think it's delicious. So good
Nope,
for you.
it's good.
What's one item that you cannot live without?
As much as I hate to say it, probably my phone.
I know.
It's
I know.
right. I'd love to be able to break the tie, but it's like you've got all the kids' pictures and then it's the lifeline to everybody. I can
The
do some
schedule.
work from it and still be, it gives me that like that ability to be in multiple places, sort of, right? Where it's like I'm at soccer, but I could still respond to something or things like that. But it's also that sort of double-edged sword of like,
Yes,
okay, now
it
put
is.
it down.
Mhm.
So yeah, unfortunately, I think that's where I'm at. Ooh,
I know. I know. Mountains or beach?
Oh, probably beach, I would say.
Another
Yeah,
good choice.
yeah.
Good. And then the last one is what is the best advice you have ever been given? In general, doesn't have to be about fire.
In general, best advice I have ever been given. Um, So, combining it all. So, when I met my husband, there was, we had these two little kids that are just, they're phenomenal. They're not little anymore, but they're such great
Yeah.
people. But just step family life in general can be tough, especially when you sort of have outside people. We've got a mom that we're bringing into the mix, and, there's a lot going on. And so, someone had given me the advice that, like, no matter who it is, if someone is sort of causing any sort of strife, anxiety, you find yourself like constantly sort of complaining about that person, that you have to, for the safety of your marriage, you make a decision to give that person 15 minutes a day. And so we did that when the kids were little, and it's easy
Yeah.
for there to be conflict, even between us, never mind now having another person. 15 minutes a day for anyone, whether it's a boss, an ex, whatever it is. Talk about the things that need to be discussed, and then do not spiral on just like bad mouthing and talking and whatnot. And like, it's amazing how they no longer live for free in your space anymore.
Yeah.
And we still to this day practice that if we find ourselves sort of getting into a routine of like, can you believe about
Yeah.
like any sort of one person. And that has been so good for just like the atmosphere in our home, the dynamic between us, just sort of releasing a lot of negativity. Only talk about the things that need to be discussed, and then we're moving on, and not sort of giving that person so much power and space within our four walls.
That's that's incredible advice. That's a very wise person. Hopefully they're still around in your life.
Yes, yes.
I'd keep that
Yeah,
friend is what I would
yeah.
do.
I remember being like, okay, 15 minutes, we're setting the
Yes.
timer. Now we don't need to set a
Yes.
timer. And we weren't really setting a timer, but just it's more just being aware of like, I'm giving
Yes.
this person too much airtime
Yeah.
in our home that we have so many other things to talk about.
That's
So
great.
that was really helpful for us. I think, it can be a lot to balance. I mean, so like a step family, but any family, right? The
Yeah.
kids, and then this job, and then you have, our interests or jobs, and you're trying to balance it all together. You're trying to like balance everything together, and it's like the conflict is just, it can be brewing at all times. And so finding a way to sort of keep the atmosphere in your home healthy, and keep the dynamic between the two of you healthy, not have it always be about the kids or the boss or the ex or whatever it is, and like really find those interests, keep those alive between the two of you, is just, it's like the best thing that you can possibly do.
Well, thank you for spending this time with us
Yeah.
and sharing all of your stories. I just appreciate it so much. So, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you? If they're interested in estate planning and they're in Massachusetts area
Yeah.
or just in general.
Yeah, so if you are in Massachusetts, I'm licensed in Mass. My law firm is called Modern Legacy Law Group, and so we
Okay.
are on our website is under that name, and we're on social media. If you're not in Massachusetts, I'm still always happy to help and kind of connect people.
Okay.
Another resource that I really like for estate planning and kind of walking through the sort of idea of incapacity or injury, personalfamilylawyer.com. A lot of
Okay.
those lawyers, they're across the country, and they have a lot of similar training to what me and my partner have, where it comes to kind of working with families, whether it's first responders or sort of other kind of unique
Public
needs.
servant kind of.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of looking at it more as a sort of counseling type situation rather than just pure legal advice, because that's not really helpful to anyone. But we're on, we have our website up, but we also are on social media. So under that same name, so Modern Legacy Law Group.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing this. I'm so excited to listen to everyone else too.
Yes, it's going to be fun. At least that's my hope. Well,
Yeah.
it's going to be fun and valuable.
For sure. For sure.
Thank you for listening to Just a Girl and Her Firefighter. It would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, like, share with all the people you love, and join us in our Firewife community. Thanks again, and see you next time.